Right, so turns out that we're all forced to fund our enemies. As we are well aware, the civil service in the UK and
Definitely my enemy. Yeah.
various state departments across the US, of course, are happy to prop up an activist clientele class based on racial, ethnic, and sexual preference grievances and funnel money to their mates. And I thought
that was the civil service.
Point well made.
I'm not even joking, am I? That's the problem.
Yeah, that's very true. But we're going to go on a specific example of this because it turns out that there's some questionable funding around an old enemy of ours and an enemy of any right-thinking patriotic person in the UK. Hope not hate. Some colleagues and friends of mine have dug up a bit on their funding and their untoward election interference.
Oh, really?
Yes, which I've been told is a conspiracy theory, but they're very happy to engage in it. But I'd like to frame this because obviously everyone's talking about Reform and Farage recently. In the Reform manifesto. So there's been complaints that the Reform haven't fully costed all of their election pledges, implying that the Conservatives and the Labour are the pinnacles of fiscal responsibility, massively blowing up the budget. And if we all remember in 2010, Gordon Brown Treasury left a note saying there's no money left.
It's such a circus, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pathetic. So basically the IFS has complained that Reform's manifesto figures might not fully add up, but I would like to sort of contend with them. So they're saying Reform's contract pledges will cost 140 billion a year at minimum. So it's 90 billion in tax cuts, which they keep saying unfunded tax cuts. That just means the government's going to spend and steal and spend less of your money, which shouldn't require funding. They should have to make the case to actually up them, but there we go. And 50 billion in spending increases. But it says it will raise this through cuts to foreign aid. So that's about 15 billion in 2023. They're going to halve that. So that's good. A large amount of the foreign aid budget also goes on migration, which costs us 14.4 billion a year, according to Andrew Jenkins. So we get rid of that as well. So the asylum system, that's another massive cut. Stopping servicing the Bank of England's debt, which is going to be 35 billion every year if interest rates stay at 5%. It would even be more than that if they decided to raise them, which they keep doing. We're the only country in the world that's doing that, which is mad. Withdrawing benefits from foreign nationals and also British nationals who turn down 2 or more jobs because, people should be working. You shouldn't be scrounging and wearing your Burberry like it's the early 2000s. And they've also said Reform propose to reduce wasteful spending by 50 billion a year across all government departments, quangos and commissions. But saving this sum would require much more than a crackdown on waste. It would almost certainly require substantial cuts to the quality or quantity of public services. Oh, heavens. Not the important public services, the ones that deliver such incredible returns on investment. How are they going to do that? Right, so Richard Tice just turned around and said, just sack them.
Good.
Sack the lot of them. So to achieve these spending cuts, the party would make a series of critical reforms in its first 100 days, this is in the manifesto, forcing every government department to do a sort of Rand Paul principle of saving £5 in every 100.
Okay.
Which is a great idea. You just spend slightly less on frivolous stuff and oh heavens, that's the tea budget gone, I suppose. It's really that penny pinching over at the Home Office. And they said, which department wastes the most money? And Ty said, my answer is all of them. And some of the quangos, there's probably 100 to 150 to 200 quangos and commissions, just scrap them. No one would notice a blind bit of difference. Actually, I think we would notice a blind bit of difference because we wouldn't be actively propagandized against our own national culture, against capital W white people, or against straight people who just want to have normal families. And the reason I say this is because there has been an abundance of evidence coming out from Home Office insiders, fed through to friend of the show, works at GB News, Stephen Edgington. There's just an endless number of cases that in our month of the liturgical calendar of Pride, the Home Office are obsessed with putting on Pride events. So here's just a couple of examples. I wanted to depress you, Eric. I save all the best stories for you to come around. So here's the Home Office's legal and illegal migration team organising Pride events. These are 5 senior Home Office officials who sent Pride messages to instruct employees to celebrate in June. So Jackie Armstrong is the Home Office's Director of Operational Capabilities Command for Immigration Enforcement and is also, doubles up as, the LGBT plus champion for immigration enforcement.
Fire them all. Fire them all.
So I'm just presuming that role means if you look remotely gay, you get your visa rubber stamped and everyone else is just barred. I mean... Okay. She told staff to wear rainbow epaulets or lanyards, change your email signature to include your pronouns, or attend a Pride event locally.
Right, so she's totally woke.
Yes.
And she's running our immigration control.
I wonder if there might be some kind of connection here. She said that staff should join a Home Office LGBT session held during the month. There is a long list of those that I'll go through in the moment.
That is the department, by the way, where there were a couple of staff that were talking violently about... Nigel Farage, right? This is the same department.
Would be the same one. I wonder if there's some kind of connection there. Home Office spokesman himself, said that these activities are being undertaken outside of core working hours and in no way distract staff from their day-to-day roles where they deliver crucial work for the department. Now, I'm really encouraged.
I believe them. Oh, that's so obviously true. They just do all of this in their free time and it has nothing to do with their work.
I'm glad that gay race communism is done purely outside of
it's just a hobby.
The hours spent rubber stamping visas like it's going out of fashion. As you once said, I'm sure they're limited on the number of visas they can rubber stamp by the sheer size of the Home Office cubicles. Yeah. If only we expanded the building, we would import the entire third world and his 3 wives into the UK. The other one that I found really interesting is the Home Office's LGBT plus champion for illegal migration operational command. There is an LGBT plus champion for illegal migration specifically. So from the nation of homosexuality, they're encouraging mass channel crossings, apparently, but that's very weird. And they said, not everyone has the opportunity to feel comfortable in who they are, and that is, for me, the important purpose of Pride.
It's our job to make these people feel comfortable.
just waving the triangle flag on the beaches of Dover.
There's a bunch of Albanians who are smuggling across like people from Africa and Asia, and it's like, yeah, we've got to make sure that they feel comfortable as gay men. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And will the immigration make LGBT people feel more comfortable?
Well,
no, I mean, that's the other sort of elephant in the room.
But have you not considered that as soon as they touch the magic soil of the UK, they become, every ardent jihadian just becomes as British as you and me. They'll be attending Soho's Pride Parade, I'm pretty sure. So when they say all of these events are outside of work hours, don't think that's quite true. But we've got a list of the events. They've got 10 Pride events on, including book clubs.
Sorry, just a quick thing, right? I don't care if it was true. Yeah, fire them anyway. Like if some guy was like, well, I just attend Nazi rallies at the weekend. It doesn't affect my work at the Home Office. I'm like, yeah, you're still fired, mate.
Quite. So the books in question are like these rich literary tomes called This Arab is Queer and Hijab Butch Blues. Because Islamic queerness is at the top of the Home Office priorities. So the Home Office LGBT network spectrum. So it's outside of work hours, but they have their own LGBT network within the Home Office.
It's curious that they said core work hours. That suggests to me they're trying to weasel out of something. Yeah, they would have just said work hours. If it was really just they weren't holding anything during work hours.
We just do all the bumming and overtime. That's fine. So they're hosting 10 events this month to celebrate Pride, including 2 coffee mornings. Hang on, coffee mornings. Isn't that going to be exactly on work hours?
Well, you would think so.
Yeah.
But core work hours.
Core work hours,
yeah, quite, yeah.
Core work hours probably about 11 till about 3.
Yeah, with a 2-hour lunch.
Yeah.
They're going to do a scavenger hunt and picnic.
What? These people are definitely being paid way too much money.
When are you organising this for the Lotus?
I haven't organised this scavenger picnic.
An event's discussing the history of Pride, allyship, and whether or not you can be LGBT plus and Jewish, which is strange.
Can you be LGBT plus and Jewish?
Yeah.
It's a question to ask, isn't it?
Really niche intersectional events going on here.
Arabs are asking.
Yeah, quite. So this is obviously absurd, and these are, even if you just write this off as a few fringe cases in the Home Office, this is still an institutional culture.
Yeah.
But okay, maybe they aren't wasting tons of money on the party rings and jammy dodgers that are part of the picnic and scavenger hunt, right? Maybe they're not just throwing hundreds of thousands at these organizations that are putting on these events. Well, I'd like to do a test case for how deep the rot goes, and let's look at hope, not hate. So Charlotte Gill has done some work here. She works with Woke Waste. She catalogues all of the various grants that the government throws at for things like gay porn research at the University of Manchester.
I've recently started following the Woke Waste Twitter account, which you should all follow.
I'll bring Charlotte in at some point.
Yeah, you absolutely should, because it is crazy. They're literally like, the government gives a £900,000 grant to literally study gay porn or something. So what are you wasting all this money for?
Yeah.
Well, because these government grants, of course, are issued by people who are woke. They capture the grant issuing agencies, and then they start sort of wheeling out the grants. I mean, if you look at, for example, the academic research infrastructure in Britain, the UKRI, the share that have basically been going on DEI-related stuff has been rising steadily. So they get onto positions where they can then make decisions on who gets the grants, and then it just perpetuates itself.
They've got to spend the money as well, don't they? Because if they finish a fiscal year with £100,000 shortfall, you haven't spent that money. Well, you don't need that next year. So they won't get that for the next year, and so they have to continue spending upwards.
Yeah, well, here's one investigation that she's done into the Paul Hamlin Foundation. Now, Paul Hamlin, as I understand it, was an famous refugee. It's become an infamous foundation now. And since he's died, his sizable estate of multiple millions has been spent on Open Borders activism was pretty nakedly on their own website. Their raison d'etre is actually Open Borders. So Charlotte includes a link to their migration page, which as soon as she posted this thread, it's been taken down. But on it was written that we envision a world in which everyone is free to move and no one is forced to move. So that's their entire modus operandi, right? They're a registered charity, so that means they get all the benefits from tax breaks and tax write-offs and the like. This was actually the group that Liz Truss mentioned in our interview when she said it was run by a former Ed Miliband advisor.
Sorry, this has just given me visions of reforming the British Empire. No, we were just free to move to Africa and Asia. What are you talking about?
Quite. So she found that the Hamlin Foundation gave Hope Not Hate £60,000 in 2015 and 2016, and £240,000 to be spent between 2022 and 2025. This was part of its migration fund, and it aims to do two things. It says to, quote, create a UK network of young migrant leaders, so young migrants agitating for bringing in more migrants. Excellent, self-perpetuating cycle. And, quote, a network of leaders and organisations within towns who will respond to local needs and pressure points and share learning to enable rapid response to provocative elements. Essentially,
right. So this is the Stand Up to Racism crew that are going to get funded and organised through this.
Roving bands of communist agitating leafleters. And by the way, it's not ridiculous to call them communists. Literally, the head of research is a member of the Communist Party who in 2013 attended a rally and said, Hope Not Hate, we are all comrades, celebrating the anniversary of the Red Army victory.
I don't even care if they think it's ridiculous. I think they're communists.
Well, yeah, that's
but even if they were just left liberals, which I actually think many of them are as well, I think equally problematic in many ways.
Yeah, but that's like saying, we have a nice glass of water and we drop one little bit of excrement in it. I'm still not drinking the water. I'm going to call the whole glass excrement, if you don't mind. So they are a registered charity, as I said. Here's their charity foundation website page. Do you know who else is? Hope Not Hate, actually. Which is strange because they're engaged in political activism. And as far as I know, backstory, I used to work for an environmental non-profit, and we tried to become a registered charity because of all the benefits that our trustees would be able to then donate to us and not spend so much money on tax and the like. We were denied because one of our members had written a piece critical of Extinction Rebellion, and so we violated their political partisanship terms.
Really?
But Hope Not Hate do an interesting thing of where they have a charitable foundation, and then Hope Not Hate is completely distinct, even though they share the same website.
Really?
Yeah.
So it would be something that the charity foundation, the body that oversees this, might be interested in looking at.
If they were applying the standards of political partisanship fairly.
Well, all I'm saying is if people, say politicians, got enough complaints about this, maybe they might actually nudge the thing and start making it happen.
But so much of this is complaint driven, and if the left is more active, which they are, we know they punch 5 times above their weight on Twitter and in many of these fora. And so they are able to put in all the complaints. It's like with Ofcom, similarly against GB News. So they put in the complaint, so they get the action on their side.
So we've got to start complaining too.
Right. And
we need to weaponize the sort of boomer Karens.
Spiritual Karenism.
Yeah.
I agree.
God save our Karens. I
agree.
Complaining.
It is an anti-white slur. I actually, it's quite interesting.
It's an anti-traditional slur as well.
Actually, I'm more thinking if Richard Tice and the like are looking at exact areas to trim the fat, various places signed up to the Charity Commission. Many of the employees at the Charity Commission themselves might be eligible for a job loss because they're not abiding by the principle of political impartiality, which again, I understand it's basically impossible to uphold, but they're not very patriotic. They decide to walk around and smear people. And they're also maybe not doing everything quite so legal.
Oh, really?
So there's been an expose by my friend Jack Hadfield, who works over at the Publica, which is Sydney Watson and the Quarterings outlet.
Yeah.
And he's done some on-the-ground journalism, some actual beat reporting. Because
Jack's a good lad.
He is a good man. So what's happened is Hope Not Hate are working with Labour campaigners in Rochdale to smear George Galloway.
Really? So the apolitical charities are allowed to do that?
Well, also, does that not count as like undisclosed, essentially campaign finance leafleting? Because they get certain restrictions on that from the Electoral Commission. But if your campaigners are working for a supposed charity and then a leafleting against your campaign candidates, that might be something questionable. But there you go.
Maybe the Electoral Commission would like to look at that.
Yeah, that'd be good. So read it from here. A number of investigative journalists went undercover in the Hope Not Hate campaign in Rochdale and discovered strong links and close relationships between Hope Not Hate and the campaign of Rochdale's Labour candidate Paul Waugh. In hidden recordings, and I've seen the transcripts for these, an activist for Hope Not Hate repeatedly told undercover investigative journalists that he was a campaigner and activist for Labour. Quote, "We just want to get Galloway out. When the journalists asked if they were planning to go out with Paul and campaign, they said they weren't, as the areas have already been covered by his regional support within the Labour Party, with the activists adding, we kind of want them to win by a big margin." So Labour are actually, with their activists, organising around the places where Hope Not Hate are campaigning and then not spending money and effort in those areas.
Who could have imagined that Hope Not Hate was an extension of the Labour Party?
Yeah, it should actually surprise no one because Hope Not Hate's Director of Campaigns and Communications was also a former Labour councillor.
Shocking.
Yeah. I wonder how Jess Phillips did a targeted letter writing campaign against Liz Truss off the back of Hope Not Hate. I just boggles the mind, right? And yet, under the Conservative government, under the institutions nominally controlled by the Conservative Party, the Taxpayers Alliance have found that Hope Not Hate got £50,000 in government grants in 2019 and 2020. So atop the Paul Hamlin Foundation grants, they're getting grants directly from government bodies. These are alongside, so this is 6 government departments, and they provided Migrant Help, Stonewall, Refugee Action, Hope Not Hate, and Instalaw with £7,694,408 in grants from between 2018 and 2021.
I bet these guys can't believe their luck. But like the Conservative Party is actually giving us money to go out and say we hate the Conservative Party. This is incredible.
Yeah. Well, of course, and the entire DEI infrastructure, I mean, this has been written. I think there was a piece in CapEx that I think it was 200 million was the estimate for the amount of money that's going on this stuff. Enormous resources. And the Tories have hardly touched this. Now, the question, of course, this raises is when Labour gets in, now, I mean, the Tories didn't touch it. They, at least some politicians, Esther McVeigh, etc., did make certain amount of noise. Might that have restrained it a little bit, and might we see a surge in pretty open, pro-left DEI stuff once Labour gets in?
It's hard to believe that we won't.
Yeah, well,
what would be the reason that wouldn't happen?
With the online safety bill, they're going to appoint Ofcom, again, another partisan attack dog against the likes of GB News, the arbiters of what can and can't be said on internet broadcasting channels, and the burden will then be to set the standards by which they can censor. So they'll obviously outsource it to expert institutions and registered charities like Hope Not Hate, who have already done annual smear pieces in their State of Hate report that, again, conflate people like the National Front with you and Priti Patel.
Yeah.
Tenuous links, but there you go. So
there's no link at all.
Yeah, that will be the manufacturer consent to go after us. And they've also got an even more sizable war chest because of that money from that year. They didn't just get £50,000 in 2019 from various government bodies. The Home Office also gave them a dedicated £141,380.
Why aren't they giving us this money? Why are they giving it to Hope Not Hate?
Because we don't hate the country.
Good point.
Yeah. So the Home Office, who are for some reason obsessed with LGBT issues as they're trying to deter people from breaking the law and breaking into the country, are also obsessed with giving hundreds of thousands of pounds to communist activists who criticize you as far right if you notice the problem. So that money they spent watching the Liz Truss interview was a tax rebate, it turns out. So I would just like to suggest to Reform UK, if you're adding things to your sort of policy agenda as you go along, defunding these sorts of organisations, reforming the Charity Commission application system, and gutting the Home Office as well as the Charity Commission would be a good start. Stop funding hate.
Hi folks, thanks for watching. If you'd like to support us, you can go to lotus.com for £5 a month and sign up and watch Beau's amazing Epoch series. Beau is, of course, a historian, and he does hours and hours and hours of long-form history content, such as this one on Captain James Cook. These are things he tends to cover subjects that are actually slightly outside of normal, popular histories. So you get to learn about things that are very interesting that you otherwise may well have missed.